Nice to meet you. Wow, so you're the wife. You're exactly as I imagined. The woman my husband suddenly brought home stares at me rudely. Feeling uncomfortable, my husband introduces her as the woman he loves. Ignoring my shock, she dreamily talks about how my husband came to her aid when she was in trouble. Right after listening to her story with pride, my husband presents me with an unthinkable choice. Before getting married, I, Sarah, lived with my Aunt Heather. She took me in after my parents passed away when I was a child. She's never shown a hint of annoyance, and she's essentially my second mom. We have lived apart since I got married, but I assist with her work as I do mine from home. I'm married to Victor, who is 2 years older and 35. Back when we were dating, he was a nice guy. Always impeccably dressed in a suit and thoughtful enough to help out around the house when he knew I was tired. I use the past tense because he's not the man I married. After the wedding, he transformed into a tyrant, a complete stranger. In public, he plays the part of a gentle husband, but alone with me, he treats me like a servant. He used to say, "Housework is a shared responsibility." But now he doesn't lift a finger and treats me like a housekeeper. One day, I had to go out suddenly due to an urgent work-related call. I returned home completely exhausted, and Victor, who was waiting in the living room, was furious.
"Where have you been all this time? I come home tired from work, and you haven't even prepared dinner or a bath. How useless can you be? You were raised by your single aunt, so you know nothing about being a devoted wife."
Despite letting Victor know I'd be out for an emergency and uncertain when I'd return, he's like this. I held back my response to avoid further upsetting him, even though I had seen that he read my message. I thought to myself, Victor can handle his own meals and bath, but he insists on complaining instead.
"What's with that look? If you have something to say, say it. Were you lying about work? Are you seeing another guy behind my back?"
Once Victor starts to get angry, there's no calming him down. If I try to defend myself now, he'll only get more heated. Even as I apologize and start preparing dinner, he keeps accusing me of cheating, of not fulfilling my role as a housewife. By next morning, he's treating me like I don't exist. I say good morning, and he ignores me. He doesn't touch the breakfast or lunch I prepared to avoid complaints. He leaves for work without saying a word and comes home to yell about no dinner or bath. I was already fed up, but this petty, unreasonable behavior made me seriously consider divorce. A month passed quickly as I began packing and looking for a new place. One day, Victor came home early with a woman. Knowing that he's polite to others, I was relieved, thinking he wouldn't yell at me in front of her. The woman, walking in boldly without hesitation, looked at me and smirked. "Hi, I'm Rebecca." There were many things I wanted to comment on, but instead, I simply introduced myself as Victor's wife. "Oh, you're the wife? Just as I imagined. Exactly how Victor told me you'd be." Feeling uncomfortable under Rebecca's invasive gaze, I turned to Victor. "If you're bringing a work colleague home, I'd like a heads up," I said. The room fell silent. Finally, Victor spoke, and it was not what I expected.
"She's the woman I truly love. Not like you. She's special and deserves my real affection. She's moving in. Pack your things and leave."
I was lost for words. Ignoring my reaction, Victor dreamily looked at Rebecca.
Unfortunately, Rebecca's house burned down a month ago. She's been staying with friends or at hotels. But then I realized she could stay here with me.
Leaning on Victor's arm, Rebecca nodded, adding her voice to his nonsense. As I stood there dumbfounded, wondering what was happening, Victor looked down at me and said,
Well, it's gotta be tough being told to leave out of the blue. If you serve us as a housekeeper, you can stay. I'm a generous guy. I'll even let you sleep here as long as you work. So, choose. Leave or work as a housekeeper. What will it be?
Victor and Rebecca clearly mocking me. I'm leaving. Let's get a divorce. Without any hesitation, I handed Victor the already filled out divorce papers I had prepared in advance. Victor, showing a moment of surprise, then exchanged a smug look with Rebecca and taunted me.
Not bad. Finally showing some initiative. If you were always like this, I never would have dumped you.
As he said this, Victor eagerly began filling out his part of the divorce papers. Taking the opportunity, I presented Rebecca with another set of documents. These are the damage claims for the recent fire. Please review them. Rebecca froze, puzzled by my sudden mention of the fire, muttering a small, "Huh?" See, Rebecca and I had met once before, years ago. I was the landlord of an apartment that my aunt had put me in charge of, and Rebecca had been one of the tenants. So, the house she claimed burned down was actually one of my apartments, and the altercation she had with Victor a month ago was due to this very fire. An investigation found that the fire had started in Rebecca's room because she was smoking in bed. I had been consulting with the police, the fire department, and insurance companies for damage estimates and claims, during which time Rebecca had changed her contact info and gone AWOL. I learned that her father, who was her guarantor, had passed away after the contract was signed. Even her mother seemed to have sold their home and moved away. After contacting Rebecca's place of employment, I find out she's already been fired due to frequent unexcused absences. I can't reach her guarantor, or her employer, so it seems like she's dropped off the face of the earth. I had been considering steps like asking for her social security number, filling a missing person report with the police, and even resorting to a public notice for disposing of her belongings. But never did I think she'd show up on her own. While I was unaware of her affair with Victor, this certainly sped things up. I explained to Rebecca, who seemed still not to grasp the situation, that I was demanding overdue rent and damages due to her severe negligence that caused the fire. So the initial amount for the fire damages, which was originally set at $3,420, was doubled to $6,840 after she tried to flee. Naturally, I also insisted on receiving a security deposit for the affair. Rebecca started to panic and suddenly began making excuses about the fire. I thought I put out the cigarette properly. Maybe it was my oversight that it didn't go out. But if it's a minor fault, insurance should cover it, right? Also, my room had a lot of clothes and paper bags from department stores, so it caught fire easily. But who would expect it to be so flammable? Rebecca's new testimony was completely different from her initial one, admitting she didn't understand the risk. No matter how much she tries to make excuses now, the documentation I've gathered over the past month is rock solid. She can't evade payment. As I pointed out each document and recounted her past statements, Rebecca finally seemed to grasp that she couldn't overturn the facts here and was visibly stunned. Victor, taking Rebecca's place, slammed the table and shouted at me.
How heartless can you be? Rebecca almost died in that fire and she lost her home.
It's her own doing. I even avoided immediate claims for compensation, considering she might need money for treatment and relocation. You're the ones who took advantage of my kindness to run. Besides, the real victims are the innocent residents of the other apartments who lost their homes. Apparently, at a loss for words, Victor started insulting me, saying I have a terrible personality and even that my cooking is bad. It was amusing to me and strangely reassuring. We, who were once married, realized there is not a shred of love left between us. Naturally, I also informed Victor that I'd be demanding a security deposit from him for the affair. Stunned by the word security deposit, Victor gaped at me with a dumbfounded expression. Perhaps he thought that the issue was settled in his favor because I chose to leave quietly. One would think that he'd expect to also be billed when Rebecca was. When I added that I would inform him of the amount later, Victor glared at me with bloodshot eyes.
It's all about money with you. How greedy can you be? Unbelievable. Let's go.
Victor, in a huff, stormed out of the house, dragging the still dumbfounded Rebecca with him. I checked the divorce papers Victor left behind to ensure everything was filled out correctly, and quickly moved on to my next step. Victor, who had stormed out barefoot and empty-handed, unsurprisingly returned within 2 days. He had left all his essentials behind, so I knew he would be back. During this period, I had gathered all the evidence of the affair and I wasn't going to let this opportunity slip. I told Victor that I was recording our conversation and warned him not to cause a scene. Then, I once again insisted that he pay me a security deposit for all his nasty comments and his affair. If you won't pay, I'll get a lawyer and take this to court, I said. Faced with that ultimatum, Victor agreed to pay me on the spot. I had been gathering evidence of his abusive language since I started thinking about divorce. I had these recordings as a safety net for divorce discussions, but they came in handy now. The agreement I drafted included several conditions, such as admitting to the affair and future payments of the security deposit. Victor signed it while begrudgingly muttering that I was a gold digger, but he seemed desperate to avoid a public scandal. After securing his promise, I kicked Victor out of the apartment I had rented. He didn't have enough money for a new place, so he was apparently sleeping in hotels and internet cafes. However, the easygoing life doesn't last. Soon enough, the savings are gone, and he returns to his parents for help. Though he didn't tell his parents about the divorce, only saying that we had a big fight and I kicked him out, his parents already knew the whole story. I had filled them in when I sent Victor's belongings back to them. Victor's parents were outraged by his actions. Disowned by his family, Victor turned up at Rebecca's apartment. He thought he could easily crash there, but things didn't go as planned. Rebecca blamed Victor for the additional damages she had to pay because of his actions and broke up with him on the spot. They had a massive fight that was so loud, their neighbors reported them. The person who reported us turned out to be our neighbor. And unfortunately, he was Victor's new boss who had just been transferred to headquarters. He was only living in this apartment temporarily for a month until company housing became available. Ironically, he was planning to move out just next week. When the police separated Rebecca and Victor, he recognized his boss and blanched. I was shocked to find out that the source of the ferocious yelling was Victor, who's usually mild-mannered around me. His boss seemed to have felt that Victor's extreme yelling raised some serious concerns about his character. As a result, the promotion that was almost in the bag got withdrawn, with a note to keep a closer eye on how he treats his subordinates. Meanwhile, Rebecca found herself in hot water. The folks at her new job who recommended the apartment found out about the police ordeal. It wasn't just a nuisance for the neighborhood. She was implicated in infidelity and liable for damages from the fire. Needless to say, they withdrew her job offer. Both she and her partner blamed me for their troubles and showed up at my door, screaming and pounding away. I didn't bother to unlock the door. I just called the cops. Being the cowards they are, the two hightailed it as soon as they heard the police sirens. A few days later, I was shocked to receive full payment from Rebecca for both the damages and the deposit. As I suspected, she might skip town. I did some digging and found out that her new affair partner was the one who provided the money. You'd think she'd learn, but no. She keeps getting involved with married men. Though she paid up with someone else's money, I wasn't sure about to let her off the hook. I hatched a plan to send her new lover a gift. Turns out the guy is a business owner who felt sorry for poor homeless Rebecca and had given her a substantial amount of money. I mailed him the same legal documents I had sent to the insurance company and my lawyer, proof of her deceit, all accidentally included with some promotional flyers. The call for fact-checking came just a few days after the mail was sent. A man who fully believed Rebecca's lies, that she was a victim of fire damage but was being unfairly charged due to a loophole in the law, was furious when he found out the truth. He demanded Rebecca to fix their relationship and repay the money he had lent her. Lawyers and private investigators got involved right away, and they found out everything, from her contact information to the job she was applying for. Rebecca, now without anyone to help her, turned to Victor, who she thought was rebuilding his life. He didn't entertain her pleas. Victor has been making payments to me, while Rebecca has been slowly paying off her former lover, the company president. After discussing with my aunt, I decided to take this opportunity to rebuild the apartment that burned down. The old apartment, which had low rent, was revamped with security enhancements like entryway monitors and cameras in common spaces, and also got a stylish exterior. Some previous tenants returned, but now the main tenants are students. Thanks to the nearby college and the location, students moving from rural areas have found my apartment. The apartment has gained popularity among not just students, but also their parents for its high security features, maintaining a steady occupancy rate even after increasing the rent.